Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Nier, Mir, Ni Hao, Buenos Dias, Buenos Tardes, Hesitia, Kwaba, Welcome. What up though? So this is Café Mélangé. We are at it. We're at session numero 40. I've been like speculating and advancing the calculating, but this is 40 if I think, if I'm correct. If I think. So I've got a few things to share, a few thoughts to share, some like updates in terms of like business type joints, and then I got two jokes, a long joke and a short joke. So this is a thought. The first one, I got three thoughts. One is one that shared or just occurs to me recently, a few minutes ago, but like within the past hour, maybe past a couple hours. But anyways, it's recent, so I'm still like working on like the mechanics of it. But this is the consideration: how relationships, and particularly marriage, are like applying to a university, and it's very similar. Similar rite of passage, similar stage of life, similar implications, and additionally, and actually the two go hand in hand with each other. And so, in this consideration of relationship and marriage being like applying for a university, there is the consideration of that experience, the distinction within that experience. So, like people applying for some universities, it's like, don't care where I go, I just want to go to university. And so it's not a matter of like just having no qualm or no scruples or whatever. Just like, cat's cool with whatever. And so here's a university. Oh, that seems like a nice university. Oh yeah, all right, let's do that. So similarly with being married, just, oh, here's a nice person. All right, I'm ready. I'm gonna do it. Here it is. Then there's a scenario of a competitive university. Oh, I wanna elite, prestigious, this, that, and the other, hard to get into, and so there's that element, looking for somebody who might be perhaps out of somebody's league. There ain't no such thing, but that perception of like having certain high standards regarding where one applies oneself and accordingly. And the process is actually similar in terms of like how much effort, stress, and additionally is involved in that. And what's interesting is like sometimes well, I can't speak on that on a first-hand basis because I have yet to complete that, but I know how much people are stressed in getting to university, and the point I'm making here is how actually after going through all that stress and all that vetting and everything, once cats are in university, it's like, all right, we know what kind of people we're around, and so there's less of that vetting process. It's just a matter of like the courting, the cheery type stuff. So anyways, that's what I'm speaking about. But anyways, going back to the metaphor, the different distinctions, the different scenarios. So there's the elitist or the prestigious, exclusivity, high class standards type of scenario. There's the scenario of having like the dream university since early school, maybe even actually having like arrangements ahead of time of like parents being legacy alumni, and additionally significant contributors to the what's that thing called, the endowment, and so it's like, not a little question about it. Or maybe it's the university that the person grows up around. Maybe the parents are professors there. Maybe it's just that it's the neighborhood university, and so the person just grew up right next door. So, oh, this is where I'm going. There's that scenario, and then there's also the scenario of doing some like research and like having some. I mean, there are a lot of gray areas along those different things. I mean, a lot of times people like have their dreams, their dream option or dream university, and then looking at other having safety schools or safety applications. But then there's also the scenario of doing research, doing some legwork ahead of time or whatever, and knowing what one wants to study, what one wants to learn, and knowing what universities offer that type of program. And it may be specialized, and there may be certain universities that invest heavily in that field of study, and so there's a keen interest. And so that's the scenario I'm in. It's a matter of having living a lot through life with the perception of being that kind of like any university. But I've become increasingly aware that a specialized program, it's actually, well, I'm not going to say that, but that's the scenario. Now, the thing about it though, how about this? In applying for university, it's kind of a two-way situation, but it's very much of the negotiation leverage and everything is in the hands of the university. They're the ones that review the application. Once they accept a student, then they have to kind of recruit and woo the exceptional students. But it's the general process of application is that second levels is that the universities are the ones that do the evaluation, that do the acceptance or the non-acceptance. However, in the situation of relationship and marriage, it's a mutuality. It goes in both directions, and so just like each of us in this scenario, if we're willing to entertain it, just like each of us go through that process of looking at universities and looking at programs and looking at the application. And to be honest, I haven't looked at a university application in over a decade. But presumably it's still similar. Applications, looking at the questions, the essays, and the recommendations, and financial support, this, that, and the other, financial proof, and all that work. Just as we do that in order to complete our application, submit our application, the other side is doing the same thing as well when it comes to relationship and marriage. And so anyways, I'm gonna leave it at that because, like I said, it's something recent. There's some additional elements to this in terms of like the takeaway about how to apply that, how to continue in our walk from this. But for the moment, like I said, this is recent consideration, so I just share it accordingly. Now, the next cosa, subordination. In a recent communication or recent convo that I have with dear brethren in the village, we talk about activism. There are recent events, I'm told, that happen where youth are increasingly back to the streets again. And so, I've seen that joint before. And I don't disagree with it. I don't jump on board either. I listen. I try to share what I can provide. For those who are interested in like building and on the long-term basis and organizing on the long-term basis, then that's what we're about. But in terms of like getting into the hype and everything, and the kind of like the emotive vitriol or whatever else, venting, don't do that. So anyways, we were having a conversation along those lines, and one of the takeaways that we have from that conversation is recognizing, we're on the same squad. Like we are fundamentally like in solidarity with each other. We want to cooperate, but we have some differences of approach. And so one of the challenges that cats on my side recognize on many of the other activist fronts is that the activist fronts are just like they don't address the system, and they talk about system, but still, like when it comes to actually to committing to something different, divesting and getting off the conventional grid, they're like, oh well, we got to work with this, we got to do voting, this and the other stuff. I don't knock that. I don't agree with that, but I don't knock it either. But if that's where the bottom, if that's where like the long-term planning, or not even long-term, but like if that's where the intrinsic solicitation is for cooperation, is along those lines of political organizing on elections and issues and lobbying and policy within the system, cats on this side, we invest our energies and efforts and material in another cause. And that's one of the frustrations, because we work with the system, and we're cool with authorities within the system, because we know the nature of things, and that doesn't mean that's not intended as a condescending, oh, nice little. It's just a matter of like, that's part of the challenge. So we recognize it's not a matter of like, it's very implausible to like, at the moment, live in a metropolis, or expect to live in a metropolis without having some type of interaction and mutuality, again, interdependence with the construction, the infrastructure, the construct of utilities, of communication, and of supplies, and additionally, without convention. So we do that, but like I mentioned to the brother in the convo, like he was talking about the police receiving tax money, the people's tax money, and like we've let go of that trope, because to be honest, I don't pay taxes because I don't have much of an income. And so my currency is in other ways, and that's very intentional. It doesn't mean I can't earn an income, and it doesn't mean if I earn an income that I won't pay taxes, because our ancient teachers tell us about that. Like if we usurp, or if we draw from the benefits that come from the economic order around us, and cooperate accordingly, i.e., if we utilize money, then we have to like. There's playing by those rules of money, and that's one of the reasons why we do it as minimally as possible. But to resort to that trope of like, oh, it's our tax dollars, that's like usurped within the system. So that's when I abstain from knocking. I don't agree with it, but I don't knock it. But I also, if we're talking about solidarity and like building together, and the solicitation is to work directly in that kind of activist trope, I'm not doing that. So anyways, the takeaway from that conversation is, and Cass called me out, yo, you at the prestigious elitist university in the class segregation and apartheid, chewing up the Wi-Fi, and additionally, touche. And in short, I can say I have a relationship with these universities because I graduated from these universities. So much of my continuing interaction is based upon that ancient tradition of honoring that connection of student and teacher, and also continuing to be a teacher for continuing students. That's the nature of academia, of schools, whatever it is, if it's a madrasa or a yeshiva or whatever. That's the nature of it. So I have that connection. Now, well, that's pretty much a main reason. But I'm also mindful and very most much I feel myself type of interact. Anyways, the good number is that I get we sort of reckon you got down number two instead of situations to regular. It works for me or within only kind of being dollars working some voting, and it's a bit a little method because it's acquiescing to the down and press convention, and so to make at this moment it can do it and just kind of getting engaged ineffective acquiescence and effective. I would be wrong, but still long one. Yes, I'm more at the moment. Ray. So this and again, speaking about just because I've been like leading to get from at least institution of apartheid education as continuing to other than like part of the methodology of ultimate activity. I'm throwing university bus because continue to operate for different ways and a number of ways. It's along the lines of being like in terms of and so there's that's like academic university say, well, there's no free lunch any other one using lane on the Wi-Fi. I'm recording stuff like that. I'm looking at on land, but we're getting into about land and easy and stuff. You got in London. I'm pointing at way that because I lean university and it called university stuff. We're on Wi-Fi actually. The title and that's the difference between accessing to the political elections and going to city council and participating in the process, and additionally that's within that's cool. And so that's a political methodology for the activists, for the quote-unquote revolutionaries or what else. The brethren that are actually necessarily as revolutionaries. For those that do in that methodology, it's basically communicating a revolutionary rhetoric, but having a methodology that is intrinsically and fundamentally coordinated in that school of political conscience. So that's the word, coordinated. So that's the word. That's the thought that I think the vocabulary term that is shared to provide the frustration or the challenge with that. You know, here's the deal that we have. Is that first of all, that function of solidarity, strong, solid. That's how we used to do, or it plays on over decade and their box. So we've been close together. So it's nice to be on like one question, like of course, but something we like our team that's to like strengthen into my weakness like or whatever. So that's one thing. And recognizing that we're TP yesterday. We're in the TP. We might have different segments. It's beneficial for us to identify shared or shared in the middle of the city. That work if you want to work the city council, if you work with the if you work platform, if you work municipality, and this will work in ethical economic mission, in sustainable viable economic self-determination economy. But I mean, economic autonomy, but economic self-sufficiency. Well, people think, gosh, I'm tell you this. I focus much on ethical economics other than the things that I said here. I'm talking about having see the table. I'm talking about having balanced negotiation. I'm talking about yo, it's not even that hot, and I'm gonna pause this joint. It's resuming now. I'm going to pause just in case and start another recording of this joint. So it's not even that hot, and I was out here for an hour in hotter weather, but maybe it's just the soleil. So we'll see how this goes.